Follow your lead.
And we appreciate One Tom Plummer for sponsoring our KRIM Community Spotlight program. Happy Monday, everyone. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. And let's all hope for some precipitation. Rain, snow. I know some of you might want rain, some of you might want snow, but hopefully we can agree just something wet. Something wet for our trees and to help when it comes around to spring and summertime, so the threat of fire is not so great. Well, on this morning's Community Spotlight program, we are going to be talking Gila Community College. In the studio this morning is the GCC Board President, Dr. Jan Brocker. Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you for coming in. And there is such exciting news. The biggest news, I would say, since the formation of GCC is the recent approval for accreditation for Gila Community College. So congratulations to you, your team, everyone that's been involved. And I know there are quite a few people, organizations, groups that have played a part in this accreditation process. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, just that accreditation process, because I think it's really easy just to gloss over it and say, oh, okay, GCC got accredited, cool, okay. No, you don't understand what that means, the extent, the possibilities, the impact it's going to have on the community, not just now, but into the future. And also, how long of a process it was, how many years this has been discussed, talked about, and it's finally come to fruition. So, wow, where do we start? I think just the I don't want to say the process, but just the getting accredited. What was kind of the driving factor of that?
Well, thank you, Chris. There's so many different places I could start, but I think the most the easiest place to start would be when Gila Community College became a provisional district. Back in the Articles of Incorporation were March 2003. This was all based on the Arizona legislature providing a statute that allowed the smaller counties the option of forming as a provisional district. And fortunately, a lot of people in Gila County jumped on that opportunity. We have the tax levy that had been created to support the district, and but it was always with the expectation that the provisional, that it would be a temporary situation and that the college would be seeking accreditation. A little bit, people say, why is accreditation so important? Okay. Having what used to be called regional accreditation, meaning that you were assigned an accrediting agency for the region that you lived in. And back then, we would have gone with Higher Learning Commission, which is out of Chicago. Having that regional accreditation ensured students that coursework would be transferable to other colleges and universities. So not, it depends on the course requirements for the degrees and grades and things like that, but it would be considered transferable. Without that, we would have been, it would have been difficult for students maybe finishing their associate's degree and wanting to go to a four-year college. So the other part of the provisional district requirement is that we partner with another community college to accredit our programs. And long history, I'm finding out more and more about the history of GCC here in Payson and Globe as well. But we did contract with EAC after a few little hiccups, but basically had a contract with them to provide not only the educational services, but the business operations, those services as well. That was from 2005, okay? So we're just coming up, it's kind of ironic that the contract then, which was terminated with EAC about a year and a half ago, will be up after 20 years.
Wow, 20
with
years.
EAC.
Wow.
So I think a lot of people, from what I've heard, I actually had people ask me as well, when are you going to get going on this accreditation? After that many years. I've been on the board now, I'm going into my 11th year. So 10 years ago or so, people were saying, are you going to get this accreditation going? And one of the reasons I joined the board is because I have a higher ed background, and I know about accreditation, I know what it takes. Well, we knew, or in many discussions with Higher Learning Commission, it was going to be a 3 to 5 year process to get that. Some people call it candidacy or pre-accreditation. It was going to take us a number of years to get there. It's a rather daunting process, okay, but we were still looking at that. In 2019, and I give a lot of credit to Governor DeSantis in Florida, who wanted the colleges and universities in Florida to look at other accrediting agencies besides, I think it's SEC that they're, well, that might be the sports. Anyway, the Southern Commission, he wanted them to look at other accrediting agencies, and somehow the U.S. Department of Education in 2019 changed it from regional accreditation to institutional accreditation, okay? Meaning that schools could go outside their region to look at accreditation. So back to the whole process. When we canceled the contract in May of 2023, I believe I have, if I don't have all my dates right, there's a lot of dates in my head. But when we canceled, we were still focused on finding another educational partner while also starting the accreditation process. Kind of fast forward to just a year ago, pretty much February 2024, when I just sort of said, well, let me check and see if we could go with another. We had always assumed we'd go with HLC. But I checked into ACCJC, the Accrediting Commission for Community and Junior Colleges. Okay, I was trying to make sure I don't transpose, out of California. And they were specifically, they had branched off from the accrediting agency for that region, and they'd split into 3 different groups, and ACCJC was focused specifically on 2-year schools. So I said, well, let me see if this might be a better fit. So I sent in a little online inquiry form, and lo and behold, the next morning I had a call from the president of the commission, Dr. Mac Powell. We talked through it, we started working on it. I talked with our interim president, Dr. Janice Lawhorn, about the possibility. We were very excited. But we knew we couldn't do it alone, because one of the requirements is they want as much participation across your campuses as possible. Gotcha. And all of our employees on our campuses were still EAC employees. Well, again, lo and behold, just a few days later, one Sunday morning, I got a text message from one of our professors who said, what if, rather than trying to find another partner, we look at getting laser focused on accreditation. I said, funny you should mention that. I think we have what could be a better pathway toward that accreditation. And I'd love to name names. While so many people are still EAC employees, we're probably going to keep that a little bit under the radar. I just want things to finish out the semester as smoothly as possible. But anyway, several people stepped up. We were doing things after hours, so it didn't interfere with their job, and we started putting together the accreditation. And anybody who thinks it's just a matter of turning in an application and then they, grant your wish with a magic wand. A lot of documentation was required to even determine if we were eligible to apply for accreditation. We did get a positive response on that in the following May. So keep in mind, this is from February to early May. And then they said, okay, you are now eligible to apply for what's called candidacy status, which is the first step in accreditation. So we rallied the troops, worked over the summer, most of the summer, turned that application in early August. Okay, so this was not shortcuts. Okay, when we turned in the final, what's called ICER, self-study, okay, is the report. All right, self-evaluation report, institutional self-evaluation report. So many acronyms in education. We had almost a 90-page narrative as well as nearly 500 documents that were uploaded. Everything's done electronically, but you can imagine how much work that took. And so that was turned in early August. The commission, they have their own board. That board meets in January and June every year. So the commission met in early January. Dr. Lawhorn and I did a brief presentation to that commission board on January 9th, and then they notified us last Tuesday, which I believe is the 21st. I assumed I'd have that date etched in my...
There you go, 21st, you got it, it is.
So January 21st, they notified us that we had received candidacy status. So all of that, I brought up the February 1 date. We did in what we were told would take 3 to 5 years with HLC. We did it in less than 1 year, thanks to, like I said, a team of incredible people who worked together.
Now that was the basically an overview of the accreditation process.
Yes.
And paperwork, kind of the steps involved. But then also what was happening behind the scenes was you and your team had to set up all the different departments and functions that were being provided or done by EAC in your agreement. So for example, HR.
Yeah,
or
that's a biggie.
Like policies. Payroll, that's even a bigger one, because if your people, your employees, your staff are not getting paid, well, that doesn't work out. So you had to get all of these departments set up, and that's not a snap of the fingers either. No. So that was going on while you were doing all of the accreditation paperwork and everything necessary. So there were just a few things going on at that time.
Just a few. If you've heard the expression before, when organizations are looking at sort of vast change, and in my career, I was considered kind of a change agent, and I tried to implement a lot of processes for continuous improvement. We use the term that you're changing the tires on a car going 90 miles an hour down the road.
Ooh.
We are literally building a car as it goes 90 miles an hour down the road. So while all this, like you said, the accreditation process was full gear, we also are building the infrastructure for the college. And the good news for us is we have wonderful physical facilities in both Globe and in Payson. But we did not have our own. We were using EAC's IT system to register the students, to do all of the student records, all of those necessary functions. Also, as you mentioned, HR, financials, budgeting. There's so much that goes into building this college so that we are independent once the contract ends with the EAC on June 30th. So while we can say that we've met all the requirements to no longer be a provisional district, we have, according to the legislation, I won't list them all, but we've met all those requirements. To become independent means that our partnership ends and we are ready to start operating from day one. And policies and procedures, like you said, we have had a wonderful group of consultants who have helped us with that, as well as, like I said, a lot of employees on our campuses who've been willing to help as well.
So if you're just tuning in or you just started watching on our KRIM radio Facebook page live stream, we are talking with the Gila Community College, GCC, Board President, Dr. Jan Brocker, and talking about the recent accreditation and that approval, which happened January 21st, so last Tuesday.
Just
I mean, very,
less
very
than a week
recent.
ago.
Yes, and what that process looked like and just how involved that was. Something that is interesting to me that you noted, because we see examples of this in Payson, in Rim Country, are projects or things that kind of get dragged out, put off. And I really appreciate the fact that you and your team got this done. You got this accreditation done where, like you said, over 20 years, 25 years, in some cases 40 years. I mean, for a very, very long time, that was the plan, but for various reasons, it never got done. Maybe there were groups or people that looked into it, talked about it more, said they were going to do it, that was their plan, but it never happened. I can see why. One of the reasons it was a daunting process, and there were people that, and myself included and others, that when it happened, when it kind of came out and there were certain, I guess, repercussions or things that happened because of that, that it's like, oh my gosh, wait, it's changed. Wait a second, what's happening? Wait, we don't have this, or we don't have this. And but wait, it was good. And what are we gonna do now? And it did have an impact on the community. There's no ignoring that.
Right.
But like you said before the program, the analogy you used, and we hear it used probably quite often, is tearing the Band-Aid off, ripping the Band-Aid off. And that is, I think, an excellent analogy for this situation, because I think that's what it produced in the community. Ow, ooh, hey, what's happening? What's going on here? But the end result, it's wonderful. And it's what was meant to be and talked about and discussed so long ago.
Well, yes, and I'm glad you brought that up, Chris. When I first came on board, to the governing board, our former president, Jace Behar, who lives in Globe, had really focused on legislation. He is just still, I got a text from him this morning about some legislation that could affect community colleges, positive and negative. But he focused on that because we had to get some of that in place and make sure that we had the support. He was able to generate an additional $200,000 per year in workforce development money, working with Representative David Cook, who has always been an ally, always been a champion for the college. We miss him not being in the legislature, but we also, I think, Walt Blackman and David Marshall are also working with us very closely. But anyway, he had worked on that. When he resigned as president and I took over in 2021, one of the first things that we did, we still had a roadblock. We still, every time we tried to start the accreditation process, some obstacle would come up in front of us. And the biggie was that the legislature had developed this alternative pathway for accreditation in 2010 that was kind of at the height of the recession, or, you know, the recession was still going on. And a lot of students returned to school or to college for training or additional education when the economy's bad. You know, if they're not working, they'll go back and improve their educational background. So they had set, part of this alternative pathway made sense, but they set our annual enrollments at a minimum of 1,000 per year. And in 2010, GCC did have enrollments of between 1,000 and 1,100, so it looked pretty good. Well, as more and more people started returning to work, and let's just say it wasn't an atmosphere where we could increase the enrollments as much as we would have liked, our enrollments did drop. And so, again, with our lobbyist at the time, Gretchen Jacobs, she and I worked with Representative Cook, again, to get that minimum lowered to 450. Okay, which was more reasonable. And I remember him asking me, is that going to be enough? And I said, we need at least 500 to be able to operate. I said, I think that's the minimum anyway. So he set it at 450, half of what it had been before. And so we removed that roadblock. So then we just, you know, kind of kept on going, and it got to the point where we realized that our educational partner was not that supportive of us becoming independent. And I won't go into all the reasons. It's pretty much rear view window now. But at that point, and we did decide the best way to move forward would be to terminate the contract with EAC that happened back, like I said, about a year and a half ago in May. And we did, and you know, again, without going into detail, we thought we had a safety net that the legislature was going to either provide or help us with a new educational partner. That didn't materialize, and so we had to figure out another direction to go. As I've told many people, I know it caused a lot of angst when it looked like out of the blue we just said, yep, we're canceling that contract. And we have to thank Senate President Warren Peterson for, EAC was ready to pull the plug in 3 months, which, you know, again, would not have been helpful for the residents of Gila County. Mr. Peterson saw that, and we did then get the contract extended with EAC until this June 30th, 2025, so it would give us the time to get systems in place. So I always say I do apologize for the angst that it caused within our communities. We were frustrated that we couldn't tell people the whole story because the accreditation process needs to stay under the radar. That's another requirement. But I don't feel a need to apologize for terminating the contract because while we had to keep shifting what our plan would be and the pathway that we were going down, we knew that was the only way that we were going to carry out the wishes of Gila County residents from 20 years ago.
And I found myself reacting or feeling a little like people that I would talk to when I would talk to them about a large project or how to accomplish a larger project, something more significant. It is always going to cause a disruption. There's always going to be a disruption, and it's getting through that disruption, dealing with and addressing or trying to reassure those that just think it's the end of the world. That, no, this is the worst thing ever. This is horrible. This is terrible. What about this? What about this? What about this? So it was interesting because I found myself feeling, a little like that. That, wait, oh no, this was so good. And I think part of it, for me, and I think others as well, it was partly due to the incredible job that everyone with GCC, especially here, and I can only speak for here in Payson, our campus. I'm sure, and I believe GCC and Globe has done a great job and is an important part of their community,
Yes.
just like GCC here is to us. But the incredible job that was done by everyone, and you see the nursing program, you see just the faculty, you see people coming in that, you know, from different communities. It's like, wow, this is really going really good. So I think if it wasn't so good, if there was kind of a big mess and it was on fire, it's like, oh my gosh, something has to be done, then it's a little bit easier to accept that.
Right.
When something is really good, at least on the exterior, what we see. Now what you, the board saw, staff saw, that's different, and the challenges that you were dealing with. But at least on the exterior, it's like, wow, this is so good. Why? Why the change? Why now? So I think, and that's I guess a compliment and a testimony to you, the board, the staff at GCC, everyone, that just regardless or despite the challenges and obstacles you were presented, still we're doing an amazing job. And it was there were amazing programs, but now, even though it's maybe hard for some to believe, it's going to be even better. It's going to be even better for
Yes.
generations.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think probably the highest level of fear
Mm-hmm.
and angst was with the employees on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
It was their livelihood, and totally understood that. However, at that point, and I think it's pretty common knowledge, that EAC had told the employees that they were not to communicate with any member of the GCC board or our interim president, okay? And that included our senior dean, who, Dr. Phil McBride, who was over both campuses. So the communications, even though it was in the contract that we would always have open communications, that was a stipulation that was being disregarded. So it made it very difficult to ensure as board members that we could carry out our oath, our responsibility of acting in the best interest of Gila County residents and taxpayers, okay? So we had no oversight of the budget, no oversight of the schedules, no oversight of the programs being offered, no oversight, and no communication with the employees. And, you know, I'm sure there were a lot of reasons for this, but we knew that if we didn't rip that Band-Aid off, that it would go further downhill. There wasn't really an interest in meeting the needs of our constituents.
Gotcha.
So that was a big part of it. I think, if anything, you know, I was called unhinged, irresponsible, incompetent, and I understood why people were saying that. I probably, like you said, you know, if I'd been in your shoes or anybody else in the community, I would have thought the same thing. It's like, what on earth is going on over there? But the reality was, I knew we were doing the right thing. And if you know that, if you know that you are going to provide a future that you're going to be able to carry out, you know, your responsibilities, make it better. My whole goal, and I told people this, I focused on the employees, and we did not lose one employee during that whole time. Okay, they stuck with us even when they didn't know what was going on. But my thought was, if we take care of our employees, they will take care of our students, because they always had and they always will. So we had to make sure that we got both the governance and the organizational structure in place where we could be independent. Let me say a word, because you mentioned the nursing program, which is definitely one of the flagship programs at both in Globe and in Payson. that process, they do have a separate accreditation process in addition to institutional. They have to be accredited by State Board of Nursing. That process is moving right along. Again, we have a wonderful team working on that specifically. There's two entities, and I apologize that I can't keep track of the acronyms, but they will be making a presentation to one of those groups in February. The following month it'll go, I believe that's when it goes to the State Board of Nursing, and they kind of leapfrog every other month through their accreditation process. If all goes well, it should be, we should hear in May. Mm-hmm. The latest would be, I believe, July. Okay. And so our expectation is that we will have all of the programs that we have now. Mm-hmm. And of course we lost the nursing program for this academic year, but we should be back offering the nursing program, offering all of our programs. We'll have a few courses over the summer after we open in July, but the majority of courses will begin for fall semester 2025. Wow. So yeah, we're very excited that we've kept this car on the road, yes. Moving forward the whole time.
Yes, as it was being built, going down the road at 90 miles per hour.
Exactly.
Well, thank you. It's yeah, already the half hour went so fast, but would love to have you back on once that accreditation with the nursing program is approved, or when there's news on that. Just to, and I'm sure it'll be announced everywhere. I know you're speaking to different organizations here soon, and in the paper there's articles online. So also the Gila Community College website, gilaccc.org. You can go to get information about the accreditation or just about GCC in general, also to enroll in classes. I believe that will be able to be done through the website as well, correct?
Well, again, we're building the registration system and the admission system, so stay tuned on that. It may be a little later than mid-March, which was typically the EAC calendar, but it will be very soon. But you know, we'll need to get all the students into the system before we can register them. But everything's on track, everything should work well.
Wonderful.
And
wonderful.
Then just one other announcement, we are holding town halls in both communities on Tuesday, March 4th at 6 p.m. We will be down in Globe at the Gila Pueblo campus, and then the Payson campus town hall will be on our campus on Wednesday, March 5th. Okay. So that'll also be at 6 p.m. So we encourage people to come out. We should have even more information by that time, and we will share as much information as we can with everyone. And just lastly, I just want to say thank you to so many people who have made this happen. You know, I might have been Dr. Lawhorn and I might have been the drivers, but we couldn't have done it without a whole bunch of people in this car that we've been, or let's just say a big old bus that we've been building.
A car would not fit everyone.
Exactly.
No. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Brocker, for coming on. And thank you everyone for listening and watching this morning. Hope you have a wonderful Monday. Also want to let you know today is the Payson Community Blood Drive that started at 10 this morning. It goes until 6 p.m. That is at the Mount Cross Lutheran Church, 601 East Highway 260. That is the log cabin. And hopefully you can take the time today to donate blood. They always like you to sign up in advance, but if you are not able to do that, they still can take walk-ins. You just might have to wait a little bit longer. But again, that is the Payson Community Blood Drive going until 6 p.m. today at Mount Cross Lutheran Church. Well, thank you again to all watching and listening today, and also One Tom Plummer for sponsoring our Community Spotlight program. It is time to get back to the music here on KRIM with the Pretenders, Kim Carnes, Damn Yankees, and more. But first, let's get a quick update from the National Weather Service.
With this morning's KRIM weather forecast,
All right.
areas of
Turn that off. All right. See you guys.